Brangelina just got their head chopped off on the last segment here, and there's a carry forward into this notion of here we are, we're talking about them. That's the parents, right? The reality is that when stuff goes wrong and you're a family, the only one that really ever wins or loses are the kids.
Right.
So, gang, guess what? It's not about you. It's about the kids, right? So let's dig into the kids a little bit right now, shall we?
Yes.
What say you about, let's just start with like best interests of the child.
Okay, so that's the theme. That's the whole theme of a custody and visitation proceeding or any request that you make of the court. What is the best interest of the child?
Thank goodness.
And what does that mean? Basically, the key things that the court is looking for is stability and continuity.
Stability and continuity. So stability is self-explanatory. What's continuity look like?
Continuity. So like if your child has been in a certain school for the past 3 years and they've established their comfort zone, or they've been at one daycare for 3 years, the court doesn't want to strip them out of that daycare or that school and throw them into a new environment when they've acclimated and they're comfortable where they are.
Yeah, I love that thought. Okay, good. So that's sort of you might say the container, right, or the context.
And obvious reasons, obvious things too, like harm to the child,
Let's hope so, right?
Of course.
So what about like the circumstances of the parents? Like we were kind of hitting on this in the last segment a little bit. Like, so what if there's almost like a top-down list, maybe even in order of somewhat importance, like what's that look like?
Okay, so the court will look at, number one, your lifestyle, right? Are you a partier? Do you work? Do you make poor decisions? What kind of job do you have? Do you travel a lot? Then the court will look at your job.
Okay.
If you're at work from, let's say, 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. and you're asking to have your kids on those days, the court might reconsider. The argument is, we'd rather have the child or the children be with the parents rather than sitting at some daycare while you're at work.
Is that the best interest of the child?
Right. The court will also look at any drugs and alcohol, either past or present abuse of either one of those. The court will look,
and that's a good point too, because most people drink alcohol. Now with the prop, whatever it was passing, it's even now, cool, right? Air quote, to smoke marijuana inside your home. Uh-huh. So how do they justify abuse? Is it like that you got in trouble? How do they draw that line?
Typically, when you do get in trouble, it is an indication that you have a problem, right? Like if you have 2 or 3 DUIs, there's a problem, most likely. And the judge will look at that.
So that makes sense.
Right. It's interesting because I sat in front of a panel of judges who talked about this, and all of them said, we can just tell. And I thought that was so interesting, The judge is judging, but they were so confident that we can just tell. If you've had past...
That's so sketchy.
Right.
Adrian wouldn't stand a chance. Look at that guy.
Also, pictures, any record keeping, any proof that you have, social media.
Of what? Have you passed out on the floor and your eyebrows shaved off?
Oh, I've seen some crazy stuff. You have no idea. Like, I've seen parties post things on Instagram with like 2 different drinks in their hands and hashtags that are so inappropriate, like hashtag...
That's just a Wednesday in Vegas for Menzel, though. I mean,
It's like, what are you? And the kids are in the background in the picture. So
that's a little different.
So, that's what I'm saying. So you're not only showing that this person has maybe a substance abuse problem, but even if they don't, they shouldn't be doing that while they're watching the child. That's the point, right? And a lot of the times the court will make orders. A lot of people have medical marijuana cards, right? The court will make orders that you are to refrain from consuming any of the following substances 24 hours prior to or on the days that you're supposed to have your children.
Interesting.
Right.
Okay. Fair enough. I feel like that's a kind of a spooky one. That's like super subjective, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, but...
So what else? So you mentioned job. What else will be on that list?
Okay, so living arrangements. If you're a dad trying to get more custody or overnight visitation, but you have a bachelor pad living with like 3 other single dudes, and you're probably not going to get overnight visitation yet until you have better living arrangements. Same thing if you're a parent where you live in a 2-bedroom home with like 8 other people and you're sharing a room with like 4 other people, that's not okay. The court might consider that as well. You need to make sure the child has their own privacy and space. And also, a lot of people try to argue that, I live in Eastlake, which is a really good neighborhood. And, she lives in like Lemon Grove, which is, not such a good area. That has nothing to do with it. I've never seen a court, penalize a parent for the neighborhood they live in. It's not reasonable at all. Mental stability and therapy for the parents. Again, a lot of service members have PTSD, and the other spouse tries to use it against them. So the court will consider, well, okay, does this person have PTSD? Are they getting help for it? Previous domestic violence, people that, are abusers, have they gone to their domestic violence classes? Have they addressed their issues? Parenting skills, believe it or not, a lot of people, especially the younger people, don't know how to properly install a car seat. They don't know how to change. I know, as simple as it sounds, they don't know how to change a diaper, all that. Sometimes the court will give that parent an opportunity, like, go take parenting classes for this many weeks. And then once you do that, your time will go up with your child.
What about like travel and stuff? Does that, like, I don't know if it's for work or maybe just as a lifestyle thing, does that play a role? Because it could go kind of both ways. It's disrupting or rupturing the child from their normal flow, but then also the experiential capital of being able to get to kind of move, you know what I mean?
Of course. So the most common traveling that occurs in these proceedings, deployment. What do you do when service members are gone? So it's very sad because in a way, I don't want to say the court's punishing these service members, but in a way they are. It's like, well, since you're going to be gone for the next 9 months, then mom gets, primary physical custody. So when you come back, maybe we can revisit the issue, but it's the truth. And the court will consider it. If you have to travel a lot for your job, the court will consider it. Where are you going to leave the child when you're gone? Right.
Right.
So those are some of the factors.
So I've heard you talk about lifestyle. We've kind of gone around job, obviously drugs and alcohol, the living arrangements. I love that thought about the bachelor pad. I could totally see that not going well. What about so obviously if there's a history of anything that's kind of going on with the child, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Either abuse for the domestic violence or whatever. We were just talking about this with the Brad story, the last segment. Right. So apparently there was, some tossling going around. Brad might have just thought that it was raising up the kid. Maybe that wasn't Angelina Jolie's experience with her sort of estranged dad and didn't really understand it that way. Or maybe he was a little tuned up when he was doing it, and the combination of the two, didn't look too well or sit too well.
Or if he was drinking.
That's what I'm saying. A little tuned up. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's slang, Ronza. It's just, tuned up.
I'm old, Jesse. Yeah. So,
so what about child's age? Does that change anything? It has to, right? Okay,
so we just went through a lot of the factors. Those are the circumstances of the parent. So now we can go into the circumstances of the child. So what does the court look at in terms of the children?
So age has got to be critical, right? Because if you're breastfeeding or if you're older.
Right. So if you have a newborn, an infant, the general rule of thumb is kind of like, okay, well, this newborn needs to be with the mom for the most part for now. And then we'll do a step-up plan for dad.
Right.
Breastfeeding, the court used to rely heavily on that. But nowadays you got the breast pumps and there's always an excuse, an answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the mom that tries to breastfeed their kid till they're 8 just to kind of keep them full custody. Adrian, that was your story.
10.
It was told on 10. Lifetime.
Yeah. So they will look at school, too. What school is a child going to? Again, it's not about you as the parent. Don't make it about you. Don't go in front of the judge and say, oh, well, Your Honor, the school that they're going to right now, I have to drive 30 minutes in the morning with traffic. And then when I pick them up from school, it's 45 minutes in traffic. You're making it about you.
Right.
You need to make it about the children. The court will not entertain that idea. The court wants to hear you say, hey, this school's not good for my child because X, Y, and Z, or this school's better because X, Y, and Z, not it's inconvenient to you. They will look at special needs. I mean, as we all know, autism is at an all-time high. It's stupid.
But that can't change, though, can it? I mean,
what?
Well, if the child has special needs, how would that change any of the other things that we talked about, right? I mean,
they go hand in hand, right?
Right.
So, if you have an autistic child, but you're always gone traveling for work, someone's got to take the child to all the therapy classes and the special needs, whatever treatment that they're getting. If you're not there to do it, the person that can do it, they're probably going to get primary custody.
Okay, fair enough.
Not full custody, because remember, there's no such thing, but like more of, more timeshare.
I always think about how, like, I look at my childhood. I mean, my brother basically, was 5.5 years older than me. Like, I feel like he sort of raised me,
Right.
with the non-parental stuff, like all my memories have to do with me and my brother. Like, so what happens when there's siblings involved?
Okay, so the courts, I've noticed a pattern, and judges have no problem saying it, that they love to preserve the sibling bond, or the bond between siblings. So in Brangelina's case, they got, 6 kids?
Right.
6? Okay, yeah. The court wants to see those 6 kids grow up together and stay together. So it's not like it's an all or nothing thing. It's not like, okay, well, these 3 kids, because, like 2 of their kids or 3 are adopted, and then the other 3 are like biological, right?
I don't know that.
Something like that, whatever. So they're not going to split them up. Like, okay, well, these kids go with Brad on these days,
right.
and then
right.
They're going to try to preserve a full
the family.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And a lot of the times, people have kids from previous relationships, not even from the relationship that they're like fighting about. The court will consider that, and people will go before a judge and say, well, I have my other kid from another relationship on Saturdays, so can I have this kid on Saturdays too, so they can spend time together?
So I feel like, being the fly on the wall in this conversation, there's 2 sides you can look at this. If this is something that you're going through, you need to make sure that it's being treated fairly. Right. So if you're the parent or whatever on either side, you got to make sure that these sort of rules or guidelines that you shared are being followed. And then secondly, is almost in terms of like a structural thing. Like, we had framed it out as kind of like an order of importance, even though there's no such thing as that. Like, almost kind of using this like a punch list. Like, where am I at right now with all these, with my family, right?
Right.
Whether you're thinking about divorce or not. I mean, that is kind of creepy if you're like planning for the divorce in that way. But irrespective of that, though, I mean, this is it almost kind of be considered like a form flow to follow?
Yeah, these are things that you need to ask yourself if you're considering, if you're about to go through this or going through it. You need to be honest with yourself. Don't sit there and ask for, I want Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. But right. Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, you're at work all day. That's not fair to your child.
Right. Yeah, gang, another great opportunity for me to plug Ronza. That's obviously what she does. And by the way, speaking of plugging, 2017? I just read on your website there was some kind of little award you won. What was it again?
Yeah, I won the Super Lawyers 2017 Rising Stars
The
list.
Rising Stars list,
like
yes.
That,
yeah, very, very, very star. What was the show when we were kids? Star Search, very Star Searchy of you.
Oh,
very Rising Star. Isn't that what they showed, like the little girl in there, and she was like killing it with the big voice?
Yeah,
nice work, girl.
Thank you so much.
Check all of that stuff out for yourself, gang, over at rafolaw.com. That's RAFOLAW.com. What's an old school way in case they want to call you direct?
844 Rafo Law.
Well, my bad. Rafo Law, 844 Rafo Law, gang. Guess what? Also, treat for you coming up. A little bit more here with our star of the day, star of the show, the SD Rising Star. We're going to get into procedures, because if you could imagine this sort of being a flow chart, you chunk it down. The last thing you got to do is figure out the X's and O's of where to move to make sure you get from where you are right now to where it is you need to be. And then also, this is ESPN, so we'll get you caught up on a little CBS Sports Minute here at the break. We'll be right back.